Lagos has a language problem. We've done this before. In 2021, Lagos was drowning in plastic bottles. Not figuratively, landfills full of them, drains choked with them, legacy bottles sitting in the system for years because the regulation around recycled plastic hadn't been touched for decades, and nobody had a cohesive plan to move. And then something quite remarkable happened. Stakeholders came together and pushed for change. The Food and Beverage Recycling Alliance, FIBRA, was formed and lobbied government to allow food-grade recycled plastic, rPET, into packaging. Private companies built recycling plants. Waste pickers were trained to sort and collect properly. Aggregators showed up to bridge the gap between collection and processing. Manufacturing closed the loop from feedstock to finished product. I watched it happen. It was one of the most beautiful things I've seen in this work. Not just because we cleared plastic bottles out of landfills, beaches, and drains across the city, but because we built a genuine, self-sustaining, secular economy. Thousands of jobs, top to bottom. Less burden on Loma and the PSPs. A cleaner city, because the system finally paid people to be part of it. Here's how we actually did it. We identified best practice for sorting by composition. A bottle, its wrapper, and its cap are three different materials and they don't belong in the same pile. We built a methodology for handling the material that protected its quality and its value all the way downstream. We identified a commercial route to market for material that wasn't being optimized. We got governments to change the legislation, allowing food-grade rPET to be used locally, which is the piece that made everything else bankable. The question now is simple. Can we do it again? Can we bring recyclers, manufacturers, the construction industry, waste pickers, researchers, systems engineers, material scientists, and regulators back to the same table for the rest of our plastic? Lagos generates roughly 870,000 tons of plastic waste a year. And it isn't one material, it's a family of them, each with its own economics. PET drinking bottles make up about 30% of that volume and already recycle at a rate above 70%. It's a success story. PET collection alone represents somewhere between 39 and 58 billion a year in raw material value inside Lagos. High-density polyethylene jerry can containers is a 15%. This rate tracks PETs closely, another buyback loop that mostly works. LDPE, low-density polyethylene, is 15%. The recycling rates here are low, not because the material is hard to process, but because it's rarely separated at the point it's discarded and contamination kills its value fast. Polypropylene, PP, bottle caps, margarine tops, woven sacks is the real gap. It's 10% of our plastic, roughly 90,000 tons a year. But almost none of it gets recycled. There is no structured buyback loop for it, the way there is for LDPE and HDPE. And informal waste pickers understandably chase the materials that pays, which isn't polypropylene. Most of it ends up in Ilushosun or leaking into the lagoon. The federal government has floated a grain tax on polypropylene PP manufacturers to force funding into dedicated recovery and palletizing infrastructure. It's a start. PVC, polyvinyl chlorides, and polyamides are around 5 to 6% each, roughly 50,000 tons per year. These are hard cases, genuinely difficult to recycle safely at any scale because of the toxicity, though not impossible to manage responsibly at the volumes we're talking about. Laminates and composites are their own category entirely. Not really recyclable in the traditional sense, but repurposable into building finishes and construction aggregates. And if none of that works, pyrolysis, waste to energy, is the last resort. The catch here is that pyrolysis needs dry feedstock, and right now our waste stream is wet because we're not separating at source. Fix separation and you fix the input pyrolysis needs to actually work. We already know Lagos can make the cultural shift. We proved it with bottles. The question isn't whether people will show up. It is whether we can build the business environment that makes it worth their while to show up. Systems must be built from the bottom up. Systems are complex, not complicated. There's a difference, and it matters here. Join me next time when I'll be digging into exactly that, what it takes to build a business case that turns this from a good idea into a functioning market. My name is Akintunde Disu. I am an intersectional environmentalist and founder of Right on the Beach, an award-winning environmental project.